Hi everyone. I'm not usually one to take to IGTV, but the topic that I am going to be talking about today definitely warrants having the beginning of a conversation. Bear with me because my apartment is loud. I have an eye line. I'm a very small human doing construction upstairs, whole bag. But I'm coming to talk to you about something that is very scary and it affects you. So let's just get straight to it. Doulas are not allowed in hospitals. And hospitals are going to tell you that this is because of COVID, but I am here to tell you that this is, it's bullshit. It's about money. Of course it is. And look, let's just get some base stuff out is hospitals are a business, and I am not faulting them for being a business. I'm faulting them for being a shady business. The model of obstetrics is built on a system that was flawed, patriarchal, and racist to begin with. And that model actually hasn't changed that much. Let's just kind of unbox this, if you will. Obstetrics was basically created in the 17 and 1800s at a time when only men could be doctors. And obstetricians were trained surgeons, which they still are today. A little bit different is that the first surgeons were also barbers because they used a lot of the same tools. And so they were actually only called in when a dead fetus needed to be extracted. Other than that, midwives took care of it. When the obstetric model was created, it was literally created based on the torture and experimentation of women, specifically Black women, who were not given the choice, nor did they want to be there. This model of obstetric care actually hasn't really changed that much. Because literally yesterday, yet another Black birthing person died because their voice was not heard. And that is not a fluke. That is a flaw in a very antiquated and horrific system that needs to be dismantled. We could have a whole IGTV, we could have a whole channel dedicated to the racism in the model of obstetric care. Back to 20th century, when obstetric care, having already really laid the foundation for just not with birthing bodies in mind, they created they waged a war against midwifery care. There was a smear campaign. It was propaganda against midwifery care, a model of care that actually had better infant mortality outcome rates than hospitals, because hospitals were really gross. It was pretty commonplace to know that when you went into a hospital, you really didn't come out. The mortality rate at hospitals was really high. And so what hospitals decided to do was to sell a better way to birth by creating things like forceps and twilight birth, which if you thought that those things were created with birthing bodies in mind or by birthing bodies, you're totally wrong. These were accessories to birth in order to get people into their business. By the 1950s, 90% of birth was in a hospital. And you might be thinking great, super fun history lesson, but what does this have to do with me? This propaganda war that birthing in a hospital is better, that interventions are better, that hasn't changed. Let's go full circle. And so why are doulas not allowed in the hospital? Hospitals will say it's COVID. It's a lie. It's because hospitals lose money when doulas are in the birth room. And I get it. Doulas are so hokey and hippie, and we get made fun of a ton. But statistically, when a doula is in a birth room, the rates of unnecessary interventions, inductions, and unnecessary cesareans, they go way down. And that costs hospitals money. Because did you think Pitocin was free? It's not free. Pitocin is not free. Using forceps not free. Using a vacuum not free. It's not actually that doulas are not allowed in the hospital. They're just not allowed in the hospital in conjunction with a birthing partner. And that birth partner could be a family member that you know and love and want, or it could be literally the other parent of the child. And I know this because you are allowed to make that choice. And yes, people are making that choice for a variety of reasons. One could be that they don't trust their doctor or their hospital. And yes, this happens because insurance plays a huge part in where a lot of people birth and whom they birth with. They could know that their hospital has a high rate of interventions or their OB has a high rate of interventions unnecessarily. They could have trauma, past birth trauma, or sexual trauma, which, like, how scary is it to think that your birth partner might like go get a coffee and you'd be laboring alone, and then in walks a nurse that you've never met with gloved hands headed towards your vagina with no consent, and you have to stop it in the middle of a contraction. Horrific. Also, there are cases of hospitals and obstetricians saying, sure, we'll sneak in your doula because the client who's asking has connections to the hospital, and they definitely have affluence, and they most certainly are white enough. And so if a hospital is allowed to look the other way for a couple clients, why can't you let doulas in? It's because they don't care about the birthing people. And stop. I know what you're thinking. My doctor, of course, cares about me. And that's a false narrative. That is a narrative that has been created by a system that wants you to believe that you are first. But obstetric violence happens. In fact, it happens so often that people think that it is normal. They think that it should happen. And hospitals are in such a position of power that they are allowed to perform these aggressions toward birthing people and then come back and say, oh my God, we saved your life. We saved the life of your baby. And they get to say that because there's no rewind button. There's no like alternative universe button. When COVID hit, things like inductions, they went up. They went up like it was a holiday weekend. And interventions went up. And cesareans went up. And it was a field day for scaremongering birthing people into giving birth in a way that benefited hospitals and benefited obstetricians. You are put in this situation because abuse of power, need for money, need for easement of the obstetrician. When a doula is in the room, they can empower the client to make informed, evidence-based decisions. They are a firewall of sorts. And so doctors don't like that. Doctors don't like that because they are in a position of power that is so comfortable to them. This is the way that the system is built around. And it has not changed since day one. It has always been money hungry. It has always experimented on birthing bodies and put them second. Doulas alone cannot beat the system. They can't. We need you. And I'm not talking about birthing bodies. We need you as a human being because birth touches us all. The only reason that you're here is because someone grew you in their body and birthed you out. And we need to start talking about this. We need to be very open about the aggressions. We need to be open about the violences. We need to start calling out people and hospitals that do really shady things to birthing people. Doulas should be allowed in the hospital, and they should be allowed in conjunction with a birth partner. And we shouldn't need special certifications, which is another thing that hospitals are doing. And they're linking up with giant doula organizations that have a history of racism and are problematic to begin with, to create a certification where you have to pay more money to be certified. So again, heaven forbid the hospital does something that doesn't benefit them. You have to pay more money to be a certified doula and then you work for the hospital. What an abuse of power that is. We need to use our voice. Below on the caption are things that you can do, and please take 5 minutes a day and do it. If you have a bajillion people following you, do something about it. Use your voice for good. If you have one person following you, do something about it. Use your voice for good. Let's talk about this, and not just doulas and birth workers behind closed doors without names. We need to start doing better for our clients as well, and naming names. There's no fear of being kicked out of a birth room because we're not there to begin with. So let's take this opportunity as birth workers to stop protecting the people who are abusing their power towards us as well. Please go to the caption, do something about this.